Every person has a moral compass that they rely on to navigate through the ups and downs of relationships. What one person may define as betrayal, another may define it as an act of love. What people see as right and wrong are significantly shaped by their previous experiences of love. Love is such an integral part of being human, so in a world where love and relationships are romanticized, why does love make us more accepting of morally wrong behavior?
Love expects us to hold a connection to a higher importance, yet morality expects us to hold those relationships to an ethical standard, revealing the natural complexities of love that can often be uplifting or blinding. We tend to glorify love without questioning the consequences to bring our own rational meaning to relationships that may harm us.
Love, often portrayed as a beautiful and uplifting emotion, can paradoxically blind individuals to moral boundaries. In various works of literature, film, and real-life scenarios, we see how love compels people to overlook serious flaws or harmful behaviors in those that they care about. Whether it's a partner repeatedly forgiving emotional abuse or a parent defending a criminal child, the power of love often warps moral judgment. Exploring this theme through academic articles, psychological studies, and different forms of art and storytelling reveals that love's emotional intensity can lead to rationalizations, denial, and ethics. Examining psychological and emotional mechanisms behind this phenomenon can reflect the broader implications for how we define right and wrong in the context of love.
In Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, we follow Janie Crawford, a young woman navigating love, identity, and independence. She narrates her life story to her friend Phoebe, reflecting on the relationships that shaped her. At first, Janie believes love should look a certain way, secure, respectable, and tied to wealth. But as she matures, Janie realizes that love without freedom, equality, and mutual respect isn't love at all. This realization challenges the idea that a good life means following the norms that have been ingrained into society, like marrying wealthy, conforming to gender roles, and giving up unrealistic expectations for love. Janie's story shows that real fulfillment often means breaking away from what's expected in order to stay true to yourself. Janie's morals surrounding love define her journey as she chooses what is right for her, even if it goes against societal norms.
While this novel is a fictional piece, it represents a realistic outcome that many people face. In one work, Goodbye Sweet Girl, it explores Sundberg's experience with domestic violence and how she was able to get out of her abusive marriage. In an interview conducted by True magazine, Sundberg describes how she was unable to recognize that she was being abused by her ex-husband.
The fear of like what was on the other side of that was paralyzing. And it wasn't just the fear, it was also that I loved him.
There are many factors that make it difficult for someone to leave a toxic environment, not just their internal sense of commitment and their idea of love.
In another fictional piece, Stranger Than Fiction, it showcases Harold Crick, a rigid IRS agent that leads a very mundane, lonely life. He finds himself auditing a woman, Anna Pascal, who he eventually falls in love with. Harold's perspectives on life begin to shift as he spends more time with her and reevaluates how he lives, ultimately choosing to embrace a more meaningful and spontaneous existence. Anna challenges Harold's idea of right and wrong by rebelling against his request to pay taxes. Love serves as the compass by reshaping Harold's rigid outlook on life into one that is more intuitive.
Shifting to the more philosophical approach to love and moral theory, we can contrast individual moral reasoning with the more concrete and relational nature of love and ethical life. Morality, when isolated from social context and relationships, becomes too focused on personal consciousness and universal rules. Instead, love, especially in the family, is a foundational ethical bond where individuals transcend their separateness and form a shared identity. In this space, people don't relate to one another through detached moral laws, but through deep personal unity. This infers that love creates a bond so strong it can override moral absolutes.
Furthermore, Valina Reich echoes these ideas in her research paper, Love and Morality. Through analyzing various theories, Reich explains that morality is impartial, while love is partial, but they both play a role in making informed decisions. However, Reich also concludes that when one is motivated by love, it can affect their ability to make morally correct decisions, highlighting the conflict between love and one's morality. This means that decisions made based on how strong one's love is for another individual tend to be morally incorrect because love clouds their judgment and moral abilities.
In Morality and the Emotions, Michael Marsh argues that our emotions play a central role in shaping moral judgment, challenging the idea that morality is purely rational. Emotions like love, empathy, guilt, or anger deeply influence how we perceive right and wrong in the real situations. This supports the idea that love makes us more accepting of morally wrong behavior because it emotionally reorients our moral compass. We feel differently about the actions of those we love, often softening our judgment or justifying their wrongdoings. Marsh argues that emotions are not separate from moral reasoning, but are essential to it, shaping how right and wrong are perceived in real-life situations. Love, as a powerful emotional force, can shift moral judgment by creating feelings of empathy, loyalty, or protectiveness that override abstract moral principles.
This leads to the concept of moral alchemy and how it plays a role in behavior. Two researchers at MIT's Brain and Cognitive Science Department explore the concept of moral alchemy, specifically when non-moral concerns become moral concerns. From a study they conducted, it was found that moral alchemy arises due to obligations we have for our loved ones, meaning that when we care more about someone else than ourselves, we tend to increase the performance of behaviors that show our value for that individual, sometimes leading individuals to downplay their loved ones' harmful behaviors.
Love, as a foundation of moral precepts and ethics, expands on this concept, suggesting that love is not just an emotion, but a guide to making decisions. It argues that love is a central piece of moral obligation, meaning that real love causes individuals to act in an ethical manner and develop important virtues. While the article argues that love can be a guiding force for ethical behavior by fostering empathy and compassion, it also highlights how love's influence can complicate moral reasoning. Love, while often seen as morally positive, can also lead individuals to justify or overlook morally wrong actions when protecting or prioritizing a loved one, showing how powerful emotions can blur ethical boundaries.
So how does this all play out in the real world? Psychologists have conducted in-depth research into why people tend to stay in toxic relationships. In specific, Eric Charles, a Boston-based relationship expert with a degree in psychology, gives insights into why individuals stay in harmful environments. Charles attributes this to the emotional roller coaster effect, where the highs and lows of a troubled relationship create a misleading sense of excitement and attachment, highlighting how emotional attachment and deep affection can cloud judgment. Eric Charles discusses how people often stay in harmful situations because love creates a powerful emotional bond that makes it difficult to recognize or act on the moral wrongs being committed. This supports the idea that love can distort perception, making individuals more likely to excuse or rationalize behavior they would otherwise consider unacceptable.
Similarly, psychology today discusses how unconscious forces, often referred to as chemistry, can lead to attachment before recognizing abusive behaviors, often referred to as trauma bonding, where victims may rationalize or minimize abuse to maintain the relationship. It also explains how abusers can manipulate their partner's self-worth, making it difficult to leave. Factors such as emotional dependency, fear of being alone, and the intermittent reinforcement of affection and abuse can trap individuals in harmful relationships. Love, especially when mixed with manipulation and psychological control, can blur moral boundaries and make people more likely to excuse or tolerate abusive actions they would otherwise reject.
So, why do victims tend to love their abuser? There are many complex reasons to why individuals may remain in abusive relationships despite the harm they endure. Trauma bonding, low self-esteem, and hope for change can cause victims to rationalize or minimize abusive behavior, all under the guise of love, demonstrating how love can override moral judgment, leading people to accept and even defend actions that are clearly harmful or wrong.
Lastly, a common depiction of love is through artwork. The Lovers, too, by René Magritte, is a surrealist painting created in Paris in 1928. The painting depicts two lovers kissing, their faces obscured by cloth, which can represent emotional blindness or the inability to see their partner clearly. This imagery suggests that love can mask reality, hide flaws, distort truths, and encourage harmful behavior. Lastly, the poem Our Toxic Relationship, written by Bob Hickok, captures the conflict that many individuals face when in an abusive relationship, with wanting to be close to their partner, but knowing that the morally correct decision is to stay away from them. The poem speaks to the idea that healthy love is not always expressed through closeness, but sometimes through distance to protect both individuals.
The arts of love can be blinding, uplifting, and changing the eyes of the beholder. Relationships with other people, whether romantic or familial, often influence how we are guided by our moral compass. Love preaches on the soul's significance of a specific connection, yet those ethical standards tend to negate that. However, this warped perception of love and morality does not have to be permanent. Recognizing that love does not come at the cost of personal well-being or sense of moral clarity, people can relearn to embrace love in a healthy way. Rebuilding a more grounded understanding of love can nurture the boundaries, respect, and morals needed for fulfilling relationships, within yourself and with other people. It's important to realize and take away from this that while love is powerful, it should not impede the moral compass of your own values and well-being. Love is forever changing, but healing from a damaged perception of love takes time and reflection, making it possible to re-establish a balance between morality and love in a way that uplifts you. Like a cake, love can always be sweet in any form it takes.